Now, first of all, just very grateful for all of you coming. My name is Chris Bloomquist. I will be your host. We're doing a fireside chat. How lovely is this? So just for context, for those of you listening in Kansas, Colorado, Nebraska, Florida, Milwaukee, we are live streaming.
13 people.
There you go. So, no, thank you all for coming. It is a beautiful day in Seattle, I have to say, and warm.
Yeah.
But we kind of got the penthouse. So I'll say a couple quick words, not only about our location, but then to center our minds on what we're going to talk about. So we are in 9-0. So 9-0 is the climate hub of Seattle, kind of like a WeWork space. So the idea is come professionals from all backgrounds come together and have a lot of entrepreneurship. I'm soon to be a member of 9-0, but I just want to give a quick round of applause to 9-0 for hosting us today. And so grateful to them. I do have some prepared notes, you can see. And I am not Dan Rather, so we'll be all right. But I would say the overview of what we're going to talk about is quite simple. So I'll be your host, guiding a three-way conversation. It's between myself, our distinguished panel, which I'll let them speak on their credentials, why they're here, what called them to be here. But the three-way conversation is also our online audience from all across the U.S. So please, actually, Stephanie, really quick, want to put your hand up. She's my co-host for this. Thank you, Stephanie. So she'll be leading the online discussion. So I will invite all of you to, you can queue up questions as they come up, and then we'll very naturally, as they come up, Stephanie say, hey, we have a question from online, and they'll get directly asked live. So through the power of technology, we're doing this three-way conversation. Yeah, kind of fun. I'm going to ask a few things about centering our minds for this. So I'm going to ask that all questions are obviously respectful, and our response to these questions are given grace as well. We may find we feel a bit uncomfortable in challenging others' beliefs, including our own. So let's all also remember that we're here to learn, to practice kindness, empathy, all those things. As a warm-up exercise, let's find some common ground. And actually, before we get to that, I had one thing out of order, which I'm going to do right now. So hold that thought on the common ground. The event is again called Turning Anxiety into Action, Cultures of Hope in a Changing Climate. And so I want to do a land acknowledgement. That was one thing I wanted to make sure I got done. So we'll do a land acknowledgement to acknowledge that this land that we know as Seattle was once inhabited solely by sovereign tribal nations, collectively known in this area as the Coast Salish tribes. The purpose of our event is to hear perspectives and wisdom surrounding our relationship with climate change, including the indigenous voice. All peoples, native and non-native, serve as stewards of the land within our respective homes, to endeavor the same care and consideration our indigenous relatives continue to provide. This acknowledgement is to pay respect to the Coast Salish peoples and their ongoing efforts to advocate for all brothers and sisters of creation. Thank you. Okay, I want to make sure I respected where we are. So again, to warm up the audience a little bit and do a fun thing on common ground and differences. So this is for at home, you can be silly and raise your hand in front of your computer. You can do this here in our audience here. How many of you identify as a human being? Raise your hand. It was easy and fun. How many of you wish to have clean air to breathe? A lot of commonality. We're doing good. 2 for 2. How many of you want clean drinking water? Maybe without microplastics.
Yeah.
How many of you believe that a greater power exists, either faith or spiritual based in general? Now we have some differences, that's okay. How many of you believe in the scientific community to help inform our decisions of the environment? Now here's what's interesting, folks. X amount of people, I didn't have to take a poll, are both faith-based and scientific-based. Just to say that, these are not necessarily contradictory things. This is the fun part of this exercise. How many of you like to live near a coal-fired power plant? Oh, come on, somebody. No, not a trick. It's not a trick. I'm just surprised. We love coal.
Your mortgage.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Mortgage. How many of you, that's funny, how many of you believe that we have the ability to save ourselves from total climate destruction? This is a whole question. We're maybe not shooting up all our hands, but this is what this is about. How many of us would love to live more hopeful lives? Come on now, right? How many of you are tired of raising your hands?
My arms don't hurt yet.
Got a little fun here. So that was a good warm-up. Perfect time to introduce our very patient and impressive panelists. And I will start with, I wish that Imam Jamal could be here, but he cannot. He's had a prior engagement. We hope he's okay and all that. But so we have 4 great panelists here. And so actually, I'll let you begin, and let's go with pronoun, credential, and so your credentials, and what called you to join this panel?
I'm Suzanne Crawford O'Brien. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a professor of religious studies, religion and culture, and also in the affiliated faculty in Native American Studies and Environmental Studies at Pacific Lutheran University. I'm here because this topic is really the center of my work right now. I've designed a class on this topic on climate anxiety for my students at PLU, many of whom are very anxious, and thinking about what the work that I do in comparative religious studies and comparative indigenous studies can bring to helping my students find resources for mental, emotional, spiritual, social resilience. So that's a lot of the work I do. I'm in the final stages of wrapping up a book on that subject that's coming out in the coming year. So it's very
I wish you were more accomplished. Very impressive.
Well, I'll introduce myself first as if I was in my indigenous setting. So Manu Aitangan Siam Misjaya Chisiam Yuchsia is not just to teach them I am. Tennisna Lonnie Grinnell Brenninger. Manu Ait Atiensana, Yait Atiensana. My name is Lonnie Brenninger. My English name, my traditional name is Yuchsia, which is in Nushkayamutsin or the S'Klallam language. I come from the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe. And I serve my people right now as the vice chairwoman of the tribal council. So if you're not familiar with tribal governments, I'm basically the vice president of the governing structure of the entire tribe, which is cool because I get to be the equivalent of the vice president of the United States for my nation. I love that role. It's very cool. I started that role when I was 27, so I'm like, whoo, or no, 29.
2 years ago.
Yeah, we'll say 2 years ago.
Jamal.
Oh, okay. Let's go over.
I'm gonna give you a hug. Is that okay? So glad you are here with us, Joe.
Okay. Oh, absolutely fine. Thank you.
Please, if you would sit next to Phil.
We have Jamal here. Finally. I'm from the East. If I come the same day, it's a great thing.
He obviously has a
That feels
great
a bit like
sense
my
of
culture
humor.
too. Let's see, what else am I doing for sure? Oh, so I'm also the tribe's culture director. So that oversees everything from ceremony, traditional foods, language, singing, drumming, dancing, arts, cultural education, traditional foods education, policy, cultural policy. So I also am connected to every department at the tribe in policy making because every piece of our government touches culture. Why am I here? Oh gosh. Well, natural resources and people and environment, they are interlinked. I know, like you were saying in the land acknowledgement, we believe that we are brothers and sisters of creation. And so climate anxiety is real, climate change is real. And when it hurts my relatives, my cedar tree relatives, my deer relatives, it's time for me to take action with the giftings and talents that I have that they don't have. So I'm excited to be amongst all these awesome minds and passionate hearts too, and glad everyone else is here today.
That was a beautiful and full-bodied introduction. Well done.
Sorry, that's the indigenous side of
No,
it.
this is a conversation.
Ready for both.
No apologies. This is great. Please continue.
I'm Eric Wilson-Weiberg, and I said in our earlier conversation as panelists in the Zoom meeting that we had that I feel like the least qualified member of this panel. I'm a recently retired Lutheran pastor, served in 3 different parishes over 39 years. Most recently, Ballard First Lutheran in Seattle for 29 of those years. But over all those years, I've had a real passion for climate and care for creation, and seen that evolve over those years and how we talk about that and think about that and how fully we think about that now. In the Christian tradition, we talk about a Trinity, and the first person of that Trinity is one who created us, And so creation is sacred in our tradition if we take it seriously. Why am I here? Because I was Chris's pastor and he asked me. He's hard to say no to. And I want to take a moment because he told me that his parents are watching from, I think, Colorado and Florida. So hi to his father, Dennis, and his mother, Carmen.
Milwaukee, yes. But
Oh,
my
Milwaukee.
sister's in Colorado,
Oh,
but
your
yes.
sister's.
Yeah. Dad's in Milwaukee.
So hi to Dennis and Carmen, and your sister too.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you.
And the topic interests me as well, anxiety. I like that the word anxiety is in the topic because I think a lot of us experience that. I, over the course of my life, have taken pills for anxiety. And so I understand it and experience it myself. And I think some of that is about the state of our planet and the state of our nation. There's a lot of anxiety around that. And I think owning that is, and confessing that, and maybe even embracing that isn't such a bad thing. My niece and I both, we talk about this a lot because she also struggles with anxiety, and she gave me the image of an idling car and says that, if you're an anxious person, you idle at a little bit of a faster rate than everybody else. But that's where I live. And so as a pastor, that's really served me well because often I'm experiencing life with people when they're experiencing moments of anxiety. And it's sometimes a new experience for them, but that's where I live. So it helps me, kind of navigate those waters with them. So for all those reasons, I'm glad to be here.
Before you go, Philip, and I can't wait. I just want to acknowledge, again, this has been my pastor for 20 years. So I'm very grateful to have to say Eric now because he's retired. But like Eric, I too have taken medication for anxiety and all those things. And I think one of the reasons that Eric and I connect on such a deep level in many ways beyond faith is that I think we try to lead with empathy and also vulnerability. Just your introduction was very vulnerable. And I think it takes strength to be vulnerable. So thank you for your introduction and for being here. Please continue, Phil.
Good evening, everybody. I am Philip Saunders. I am the CEO for People of Color in Green Spaces. And it's basically consulting in a way of government relations, understanding how emissions are affecting us, and making sure that people that look like me are included in this conversation because we are the worst in some of the worst areas and devastated. And just in speaking with the tribal folks as well, same thing. These are one of the things in my focus is to make sure that we stay on, point, on target, because if we don't, we lose our identity and what is really going on. So in working with that, I work with folks specifically in the transportation sector because it is one of the worst. It is the top emitter, and electrifying and zero emissions is the goal. This is the only way that we can get near to saving ourselves from this perilous, future it could be if we don't make changes now. And being able to talk to people in the community and even talking to family to help them to understand, this is what it really is. Why? Because it affects your health, and it's on and on. It's a cyclic thing that, why do we have asthma? Why are these things happening to us now? These are things that have been happening. It's systemic, but how do we break that cycle? I was also a veteran of 20 years. I've traveled all over the world, both deployments and then just the Army sending me where I needed to go. But seeing how we affect different countries and hearing how, people are just getting understandings from different point of views is critical. Because if you don't understand, it's a global thing. So burning oil or, fracking and doing all these things, they're dirty businesses and people know it. I was recently in Mexico and just watching the cruise ships come in. I know that my better half will always tell me, I don't want to hear that, but they're literally sitting there smoking. The ship is running, idling, just spoke about idling. Ship is sitting there idling. The people know it, but it's the only way that they're really getting, their money and their, as tourism comes in, but it's also something that is tearing their communities apart, little by little. So, my reason for being here is just to be a voice and to sit here with, my esteemed colleagues here, just to give another perspective of the life that we live and how we can help journey forward and how we can make things better. Because as always told, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So we have to continue to keep going and speak on it. So thank you for having me, Chris. And I'm just happy to be here with everyone today.
And before we go to Jamal, I just want to say, I know Philip because he's led panel discussions. What was the topic? Do you remember? We put you on the spot, but it was at SIA about a year ago. You were the panel leader. And of course, I put you on the spot today, but it was around Indigenous and environmental equity, I think.
It was.
Is that right?
It was. And unfortunately, and I just want to recognize I had a Ryan Sinjan, and he was a person that I worked with for a short time. He was from the tribe in Mexico, New Mexico.
Yep.
And he unfortunately has passed. So
He was a shining light too. He was a young man that's so much promise.
very early, but he definitely gave insight on how tribes felt, and he was a leader in communicating with folks. So just want to acknowledge that. And it was a great panel. So one of the things that I did learn, I have a close person to me that was actually able to give the medical expertise too. So that was key in helping people to understand it's bigger than we think.
Absolutely. And I was so impressed with Philip, guys, that like, please be on my panel. He led such a great conversation. And I think what you and I have in common is like kind of fearless leadership and passion. We will speak our truth and listen as well. But I was just so impressed with him as a person. So thank you for being here as well. Please, Jamal.
Thank you. By the way, am I supposed to be looking at you or here or here?
The owl sees all. So just really
I
quick
see. Oh,
to
okay,
answer the
okay.
question, this is actually a great segue before we introduce you. So we have this device, it's called the owl. It's a 360 camera and microphone. So whoever's speaking, it instantly will be on you. So just so you know, if you're sitting in the back, you're gonna be on camera if you use your voice or on the side, like Mark here. So it's amazing. And it's real time. So
Wonderful.
the camera is on you now, Jamal.
Okay, so less anxiety.
It's not recording, it's also for this.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I just want to say salams to all of you. Salams, shalom, peace, namaste. Delighted to be in what I would call a circle of love. Do you know where that comes from, this wonderful utterance? Have you heard of Rumi? He's a 13th century sage. He has a wonderful utterance. He says, please come out of the circle of time and enter the circle of love. Please come out of the circle of time, enter the circle of love. This is a beautiful circle of love. So who am I? My name is Jamal. I am Imam at the Interfaith Community Sanctuary. It's a church building we own. And there we foster a living, breathing interfaith community. Any interfaith activity, we're very heavily involved in the Puget Sound area. We believe that interfaith is not about conversion. It is about completion, becoming a more complete, developed human being. So I'm Imam there. I'm co-founder of this place called Interfaith Community Sanctuary. I'm also 1/3 of the Interfaith Amigos. After 9/11, I got together with a rabbi and a pastor. We've been called the Interfaith Amigos.
Hold on a second. I want you to say that again for our audience as well. The Interfaith Amigos comprise of which three faith backgrounds again?
I'm a Muslim.
That's right.
We have a rabbi.
That's right.
And we have a Christian pastor.
This is not a joke, everyone.
Yeah.
It's not. It's an amazing show of love and acceptance.
It is.
I mean, it's incredible. By the way.
Thank you.
Acknowledge that.
I mean, to overcome the climate of fear,
Absolutely.
Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, fear of other religions, we found the best way was just to really get to know the other on a human level. And if you get to know the other on a human level, no matter what the difference is, now it no longer looms as a threat. It becomes impossible to demonize or dehumanize the other. So anyway, I'm also 1/3 of the Interfaith Amigos. We travel the country, overseas also, sharing a message of inclusivity. Why am I here? Of course, a wonderful invitation, and my dear friend Suzanne recommended me. I come from a country called Bangladesh. It's a very small country. You know, it's half the size of Oregon. Half the size of Oregon. Oregon has what, 5, 6, 7 million people? We have over 170 million people. So it's crowded. It's a delta. So the problems of flooding, cyclones, if climate change is not checked, one of the first countries, besides Maldives and is Bangladesh.
That's right.
It'll go underwater. We lose land every year. We have what is called climate refugees going on to higher land.
Yep.
And the space is becoming less and less and less. That's why I left the country, one less in Bangladesh. I'm being of service.
You gotta laugh. You gotta laugh.
That's right. Anyhow, so I'm here because the topic is of interest to me, but Eric, I must compete with you. I am the one least qualified. Believe me. I'll be spouting spirituality, Rumi, mystics, and you'll be talking about climate change. I'll be listening. Thank you very much.
I would say that, before we move on, please, warm round of applause for our distinguished panelists. I mean, we're just getting started with introductions and we can't get off like these amazing topics already. So I'd say we've had a couple of Zoom calls, and when we got started, I was like, oh my gosh, like, can I just be one of you in the audience, eat my popcorn, because the conversation's already so exhilarating. So thank you all. The biggest commonality I've found so far in the 5 panelists, quite frankly, is humility. And these are some of the most accomplished people who could be in the room. So anyway, I'm very humbled to be helping lead the discussion. So with that in mind, here's a little thing that you should all know. So we had all panelists give a couple of questions that they would like me to ask them. So some premeditation to this. What they don't know is that I did change the question somewhat to speak to multiple panelists.
Okay.
So they are similar in spirit, but altered a bit. So I want multiple of you to speak, which is great. I have a couple curveballs that I've thrown in for fun to make it spicy. And then obviously, again, our online audience will also be chiming in. And by the way, if you'd like to queue up questions, right away, we'll make sure we take some moments and you can cue me and say, hey, we have a question online. So for everyone online, in fact, the format will be put your name and state. So we can say it's, Brandon from Nebraska or whoever it may be, and we can give acknowledgement to the question. So that being said, here's the first question, and this was, I think, initially inspired by a couple of panelists, including Eric. So in many faith traditions, like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, communities are taught themes around being fruitful and multiplying, or having dominion over every living thing that moves upon the earth. These are from scripture and from different faith and traditions. In light of the climate crisis, where we realize that Earth has finite, not infinite resources, like land, water, food, how are these teachings helpful versus problematic? And I'm not gonna call on anyone. I want anyone just to kind of speak freely as they're inspired to do so.
I'll get the ball started here. While we think, it's great because, I know the verse from Genesis and there's some other from Psalms as well, but, we were taught to work it, work the earth as well and take care of it. And, my biggest piece on that is take care of what God has given. The last time I checked, there is only one earth. There is nowhere else to go.
Plan A.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there is no, you can talk Mars, you can talk the moon, you can talk about colonizing, all of these things, but you cannot breathe on those places,
Yeah.
nor you can say terraforming, you can go on and on and on. This is what we were given to toil and work on it and make sure that it was taken care of. If, in reading throughout history, when you're looking at, when you're in areas like Africa, it's a continent, but when you go there, the resources are so small, but they are taking care of what they have, And I don't want to speak to tribe because I know you're going to speak to it, but I mean, it was everything resource was used
Yes.
and it was taken care of. You
Yep.
know, when you talk about a buffalo, the buffalo was taken all the way down and every piece was used.
That's right.
But that is key, you know, when you start going into places to where, and I hate to say it because it's uncomfortable, where colonization and things take place and industrialism and all that, it has basically changed cultures to now just start pulling apart what was already set by wherever we say we originated. When you say originated, whether it's Africa, whether it's tribes were here first, all throughout North America and on and up and down, even down into South America. So if, you know, we took care of it prior to industrialism came and it started to tear us apart. Here we are today. It never stopped and it continues. And now we don't know how to undo it.
Yeah.
So in my humble opinion, so.
Can I go to something that you just said is so important and it's really making me personally think. I think it's very easy to think, oh, that problem is in the past.
Right.
Social justice is a problem in the past. That was 60s. You know, colonialism, that was in the past. You know, that was the settlers. That's not our sin anymore. Utter nonsense.
Right.
This stuff is happening now here, other parts of the world. I just want to acknowledge that because it's so important to realize these are not past sins or issues. They are ongoing and insidious. And we need to own that. So I really appreciate that perspective.
Can I just add to that,
Please.
piggyback a little different perspective? You know, the problem is not so much of finite resources. The problem really is our human nature.
Mm.
You know, this is one insight which has gone viral. Gus Spaeth, who was the economic advisor or even environmental advisor to President Carter, he said, you know, for 30 years I thought the biggest environmental problems are loss of biodiversity, climate change, ecosystem collapse. And he thought with 30 years of good science, we would take care of it.
Mm.
He said, now I realize the biggest environmental problems are not loss of biodiversity, climate change, ecosystem collapse. The biggest environmental problems are selfishness,
Yep.
greed,
Yep.
apathy or indifference.
1000%.
And science will not take care of that. It is about the
Human
need for
condition.
spiritual practices, becoming
Yes.
more Christ-like, Buddha-like, Elohim-like, Krishna-like, Allah-like. It's a spiritual problem that we have.
Very well said.
Man, that's so good. So good. So it's interesting when you asked that question, I was like, oh my gosh, I was trying to think in my teachings. That, you know, I'm born and raised into Squalum. We wouldn't call it faith, just traditional teachings.
Yes.
And I'm 35, so I have a lot more learning to do. But we've never had a teaching about limiting the human population, which, because we're talking about Genesis, and I happen to be married to a ordained Foursquare pastor, so I have both of these things in my life.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking about my teachings, and it was never about humans should think about potentially limiting themselves as a population if something comes out of balance. I think we always operated in this space of faith, so to speak, where it was if we just always took care of the land, it would always reciprocate in return, and we'd never have to worry. As long as we were fulfilling our end of the deal, nature would do the rest, and Creator would do the rest.
And by and large, it does, by the way,
Yeah.
when you do it right.
It does, and its spirituality is the most crucial part of that. So, as an example for us, we do what we call the first salmon ceremony every year,
Mhm.
and tribes will do. Actually, a lot of our tribes in Washington State do this. They'll pick which season they want. It can be the first spring salmon, or it could be the return of the salmon, which is fall season. We tend to go for the fall season. But what you do is you grab, literally, you call one of your fisher persons and say, I want the first fish out of your net. They come bring it to us, and we prepare it. But we keep the head, bones, and tail intact. But everyone, it feels a little bit like communion in a way. Everyone gets a taste of the first meat,
Oh,
of
that's
the
nice.
first fish of the season.
Yeah.
And we celebrate with songs. You know, we have a salmon warrior song. We tell stories about how salmon has always helped us over the years. We actually get national, state, and local leaders to talk about our salmon restoration efforts at gosh, even the international level, because it's US Canada now too. Like for us, we were talking to US Canada about salmon populations. And so we're talking and we're eating, and then we release the bones back into the water with the belief that the salmon will float down into the depths that we cannot see or understand. It's so deep in the ocean and in the spiritual places. But it would return to the village of the salmon people, and it would say, the squalums treated me well. We need to return next year to feed them.
That's beautiful.
And you do that every year, and we've always had a population come back.
Right.
You know, so the spirituality piece is so huge. And so that's why I'm kind of like, it's interesting to try to answer that question. Is human population problematic? Well, to us, we'd probably say no if you were talking to my ancestors.
Sure.
As long as we were doing what the Creator told us to do, the sacred duty of caring for your family, which is not just humans. It's the creation too. The cedar tree, the bear people. Like, that's why you always hear us talk about like the salmon people, the tree people, the prairie people, because they are. And actually, they can shapeshift in some of our legends. You know, they can go into human form and back into their created forms. And so that's why we always have this closeness. So yeah, it's an interesting question to try to answer.
Yeah. Well, and quite frankly, Indigenous peoples, I mean, you're making me think about how they were not faced with these issues. And oh, by the way, they did not cause them.
No.
No.
Oh, I mean, I'll be fair though. We colonized on each other though. I mean, we warred with each other.
Fair.
We took over people's land. You know, there are tribes that even locally, it's like, you guys took us over and you absorbed us and you enslaved us. And it's like, yeah, we did. I mean, it's an uncomfortable piece of my history that I don't like talking about with the things that happened in my tribe's past. And my tribe is potentially the reason why some tribes are not federally recognized today, you know? So, I mean, colonization's a real thing, even amongst the indigenous peoples, you know? It's a, yeah.
I know Suzanne wants to say something, but can I, again, I'm so impressed with everyone's just empathy and humility in this conversation. So let's do another quick game. How many people in the room appreciate humility, first of all?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many people suffer from the human condition? Right?
No, not
She's actually a robot.
Tell me your secret.
Suzanne's a bot.
I'm not human.
But it's like, these are human condition things,
that's right.
greed, selfishness, fear of the other, however that is defined, and that within communities that happens too, and I just appreciate your perspective on that. Thank you.
Yep.
Please. Did you want to chime in?
Sure, but I was just thinking about how that question comes up in the climate anxiety class. We read Abraham Joshua Heschel's The Sabbath, which is a beautiful book he was a leading Jewish scholar of Jewish mysticism, wrote after he was a survivor of the Holocaust, lost most of his family in the Holocaust. So one of the most important Jewish voices of the 20th century. He has this beautiful meditation on the Sabbath. And a lot of Jewish ecologists have picked up that book as kind of one of the most important contributions that Judaism makes to the question of ecology and sustainability is this idea of the Sabbath, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which would be, you know, what would it be if we all took one day out of the week where we did not spend money and we did not use technology. We put our phones down, we turned off the Wi-Fi, right? And we did not drive anywhere. And we walked and we spent time with people, and we gave everybody, including the earth, a day off, right? And of course, the biblical tradition also has every 7th year, you give the earth a year off.
We have a similar tradition.
Yeah.
Land Sabbath, land Sabbaths.
Right?
Awesome. Yep.
And every 49th year, you forgive all the debts, right? This is to prevent that sort of stockpiling of wealth. So, I'm not Jewish, and I don't advise my students to appropriate Jewish traditions, but I do ask them to think about how do you rest and what does rest look like, right? Is rest scrolling through Netflix? Is rest distraction and consumption? Most of us spend money as a way to rest, right? But is there a way of integrating different ways of approaching rest that are good for your soul, good for your community, and good for the earth? And that's a different way of thinking about rest. But I think most sacred traditions have deep abiding wisdom around how you just need to stop sometimes. And it's part of this question of, can we that how do we work the earth in a way that is respectful? And Heschel says this over and over. The challenge is how do you have things without being enslaved to them?
Oof,
Right?
yeah.
How do you work without that work consuming you? How do you live in a world of things and not be controlled by those things? And for him, the answer was pretty simple: take a day off once a week.
Right.
Yeah,
Turn it all off for 24 hours.
Yep.
It's pretty good advice.
Absolutely.
So I ask my students to take 24 hours off. And the remarkable thing is it's the hardest assignment they have all semester. It stresses them out like crazy because it's a lot of work to take a day off.
It is.
It's a lot of work to prepare ahead of time, to clear that time. It takes a lot of intentionality. It also requires community. When my students do it alone, they get really depressed and isolated, right? They lock themselves in the dorm room for 24 hours. It's no good. But the ones who invite all their friends over for board games and cold pizza
Absolutely.
have like a renewed sense of life, right? So it really requires community and it requires discipline and a lot of hard work to make it happen. It's also, for many of them, it feels like a privilege. You know, they have
is a
multiple
privilege,
jobs. All my
absolutely.
students have jobs. We do not have high income students at PLU, right? We have students who work really hard and are working their way through school. How do I take a day off work? And yet, communities who do not have a lot have figured out how to do it. Right? So it is something when we prioritize it.
What is our most precious resource in this life?
Time.
Time.
Yep.
We don't know how much of it we have, period. No matter what you believe in. We also so I mean, to your point, I think to invest that precious resource of time into time worth being spent.
Well, this is the thing, is our language around time I find so fascinating because we tend to always talk about wasting it, spending it,
Like as a currency.
investing
As
it,
a
like this
currency.
thing, right?
Yeah.
Instead of maybe to think that time is the only thing we do have.
True.
It's the only real thing, is the present moment.
Every
we're in.
sentient being has
That's all
time.
you've got.
And there's different ways to think about time too. The Greeks talked about two kinds of time. Chronos time, where we get chronology, where you're looking at the watch all the time, and then Kairos time, which is more about timeliness, about how to move through time and how to move through time wisely. And part of that includes taking Sabbath. But I think the problematic part of your question has to do with some of the language that you find in the book of Genesis when humanity is created in God's image. That's the first part of it, which is a good thing. Humanity's told they're created in the image of the divine, and then told to have dominion, which is a very confusing word.
It is. English is not always a good
And is it a
translator.
direction?
Yeah, that's right. And
Yeah.
there's two directions you can go. You can go the direction of domination.
Yeah.
Or you can go the direction of domicile or domestic, which is home.
Yeah.
And of the two words, that's the easier one, the dominion.
Yeah.
The harder word is to subdue the earth.
Mm.
And there's not a nice English thesaurus word
Well,
for
hold on, Eric.
subdue.
Wasn't there someone there taking notes from God, like verbatim? No? Why are we laughing?
We take this on faith.
Yeah.
And we take the words that we have. But the Hebrew word for subdue is kabash, and I think in a way it puts a kibosh on subdue. It can also mean cultivate and work with the earth in order to make the earth fruitful and do what the earth was created to help the earth do what the earth was created to do. Adam and Eve were supposed to be helpers of one another. I think in the Christian tradition, the word that has been really helpful, which was a word the church used only out of self-interest for many generations, and it was mostly in North America, which is the word stewardship. And it was not a positive word. It's the word that churches used when they had to raise money. Yeah, the church leaders who did it were not the spiritual people in the church; they were the business people. And people, when the stewardship campaign came around in the church, people didn't love that time, because they were asked to make a commitment of their financial giving. But it really essentially needs to take care of something that doesn't ultimately belong to us. And it made its way into the environmental movement. And it's become this beautiful word about caring for the earth.
Absolutely.
Can I make one quick comment?
Please,
Yeah.
please.
In the Quran, Allah says, "O humanity, you are God's representative on earth." And Prophet Muhammad said, "The earth is like your mother. Honor her, protect her." That's one point I wanted to make, that we are all God's representatives, and that's our obligation. So not dominion, but to do good on planet Earth.
Sacred duty.
Yeah. I'm not saying Muslims practice that, but that's the Quran. The second thing is about time. The Quran says a lot about time. You mentioned time. I love teaching stories. There's a wonderful fictional teaching story in the Islamic tradition. Here's a mullah. He's a fictional character. He goes to London Museum, and this very erudite professor guide says, "This is 10,000 years old." Mullah says, "Excuse me, it's 10,004 years old." The guy is a bit annoyed. "This is 10,000 years old." "Excuse me, it's 10,004 years old." Quite annoyed. Happens the third time. "This is 20,000 years old." 20,004 years old. "Sir, you have a turban, you have a beard, you tell them you're from the exotic East. How can you be so laser precise about these dates?" "Simple," says the mullah. "I was here 4 years ago. At that time, you mentioned those dates." The point being, this problem is very urgent. It's later than you think.
Right.
You don't want to be anxious about it, but there is an urgency to it.
The time is dying.
Yeah, time is precious, as you said. Yeah, and it's later than you think. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I think I've asked one question. We're just enjoying this.
Are we doing questions now?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. We have a question from the audience, please.
Hi.
Could you state your name, please?
Yeah, I'm Talia.
Okay.
I'm loving this conversation. It's really special to hear. I work at a Jewish nonprofit called Adama.
Excellent.
It's the largest environmental Jewish organization in North America, and it's really fun to hear like the different takes from everyone's cultures and traditions and such. And I just wanted to include a few thoughts that popped into me when you were talking like the biblical quote, like the first commandment that Adam and Eve got were to like work the land and to protect it, like they shmom, and to and I think that it's been translated in different ways, but like it's interesting hearing the different translations here. And the way that, and then another commandment later on is when the Israelites are like coming into the land, there's a like you can't destroy trees of the people that live there. Even in a time of war, there's like a certain morality to how we're treating the land, what belongs to who, whatever. And I think a third source that like is really interesting to think about, like caring for future generations, is there's a story of this guy Choni, and he plants a tree. You probably are familiar with the story, and he plants a carob tree, and a guy's walking by, and he's like, "What are you doing? Like, it's only gonna fruit in 70 years. You'll be long dead by then." And he's like, "No, it's not for me. It's like it's fruiting for the next generation."
Absolutely.
And I think that is like the idea that in a lot of faiths, it's like, of course, you want to live morally and be a good citizen and a good community member, but it's also making sure that you're thinking about the next generation.
Yep.
Absolutely. Which is very evident in today's conversation about climate change. But I want to just like share different ideas that were popping into my head as we were having this conversation. And I love all the work that you guys are doing. And I would just like to also, like, if you have more sources and ideas and like thoughts of different ideas behind different faiths, because it's really fun to kind of collect these ideas.
Absolutely. Round of applause for being brave enough to ask questions from the audience. Thank you for sharing that. I just think of ripples in a pond, right? We don't know the effects we make. We put this drop in a pond, and all these concentric circles come out, and it could be 70 years later for my unborn, grandson or daughter, right? You don't know, or my neighbors, more importantly, and their children, and thinking about community. It's such a beautiful question and perspective. Thank you for that. Anyone else want to chime in on that? Are we good? We got through one question, by the way, but
There's
my
somebody
gosh, the conversation's
Yeah,
so good.
online that has kind of a question
Please, let's do
on
online,
this
please.
topic. Michelle in Seattle was bringing up, you guys had mentioned the issue of like poor population, like underserved populations, populations of color being next to power plants or places where there's higher rates of asthma. And Michelle was asking about like, well, there's also the heat indexes in a lot of those populations is worse. There's less shade, and maybe you guys can speak about specific examples of like what are cities doing to combat those inequities?
Before you, Michelle, thank you for the question. She's reading in my mind, and she is
Okay.
not. No, this is my cousin, by the way. Hi, Michelle. No one knows these questions but me. But what's so crazy is the next question is going to piggyback on it. So I'm going to ask it and have that spirit in there, which is how are each of your communities impacted by climate, and also what are each of your communities doing to mitigate the effects of climate change? So it's all in the same spirit of how are we all impacted individually in these communities, and what are each of your communities doing to overcome? So by all means, go ahead.
Oh, me first?
Sure, well, you looked happy.
Oh, I do, yeah. We do, yeah. So the Washington State tribes are definitely on the forefront. I would actually say the Northwest region, so that'd be Alaska, Washington, Oregon, Idaho. We happen to have we call ourselves the Affiliated Tribes of Northwest Indians. I believe we also include Montana in that. But the Northwest, I'm gonna say region of tribes in the United States is very active when it comes to pushing forward a progressive policy, working with the state, working with the feds on all of these matters. So I'm really proud to be part of a region of tribes that are very active. In my community specifically, oh gosh, the top things that we are being affected with is sea level rise. Where I am located on the Olympic Peninsula, we are right there on the Strait of Juan de Fuca, the 90-minute ferry ride to Victoria, Canada. So I'm right there. So sea level rise is a problem for us. The snowpack going away, the glacial melt, it's a huge issue for us. I'd say more so than the sea level rise. And then that affects my ancestral rivers where the salmon come up. It's also causing more drought. So now my cedar trees are stressing out. When I look at trees now, they're starting to get brown on the very ends. And so, I mean, like they are literally physically manifesting stress now because the water is not there like it used to be. So we are very close in partnership with Clallam County, City of Sequim, City of Port Angeles, and also agriculture. We are in Sequim, we are a highly popular place for agriculture because we are in the Sun Belt of Washington, at least in Western Washington. So a lot of our rivers were straightened on purpose for agriculture and irrigation. And so, you know, that hurt our river too, and that's hurting our salmon because they don't have the same places to meander and rest in the trees that they once had, you know, to be able to populate and reproduce. And so, so what we're doing right now is we're working with all these different parties on water use, like how much water can the farmers use nowadays? And that's a hard conversation because it's getting less and less every year for their irrigation. We are talking to our state about water temperature. We're talking about ocean salinity. What can we do to fix that? That means we're working with Department of Natural Resources, Department of Fish and Wildlife, Department of Ecology, Department of Health for environmental health and how that affects the human resource. So nobody has a great answer on how to take all the, you know, make the oceans less acidic and less salty. No one has an answer for, you know, getting the glaciers to come back. But what we're trying to work on now is just protecting what we have.
Yep.
And hopefully with the restoration efforts that we can do, if we can somehow work the land differently to where water is more efficient, that way we're not as highly impacted by glacial melt as we are right now. If we can do more solar power, we're working on that. We're trying to actually learn from other tribal partners. There's a tribe in Montana, I believe. I think it's Montana. Their entire health clinic is solar generated. I'm like, I want to learn how to do that.
Absolutely.
I want to learn. And so you know, trying to be more green and efficient is hard in rural areas as well. And I was so glad, Phil, you started kind of touching on that. Like when you get into these areas that don't have access, it's really difficult to try and change people's mind to want to do this because it's harder. And it's it's not really accessible. It's not inexpensive.
Well, but to that point for a second, this
Yeah.
is so important, the
Yeah.
economics of clean energy.
Yeah.
If you, first of all, I'm a computer engineer, okay, everyone. I'm not a climate, I'm the least qualified to be opening my mouth right now, okay? But from the articles I've read, power from solar in particular is, once it's installed, the problem is the upfront cost,
Right.
right? And I know
Yes.
folks can speak to this, but
Yeah.
once it's installed, it is significantly cheaper than oil, gas, or any other
Yes.
but it's that upfront cost. That's the
Right.
barrier, right? Is initially, because we're trying to break, being beyond human behavior, we're trying to break 150 some years, 200 years of infrastructure that's built on oil.
Right.
Mhm.
And we
That's expensive to get off of. We've
It
been
is.
on that tap for way too long,
and we're dependent.
and we're dependent.
Yeah.
But the good news
Yeah.
for think about this is, well, how much power can we get from the sun? We have about 4 billion years to go, 3-4 billion. Like we got a little bit of energy from the sun
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we can tap into.
Right.
So once we
Well-
can get there, it's great.
Right. Well, and we can't, so being in Western Washington, we can't always depend on solar. So that's the other thing too, is like, it can be one source, but it can't be everything because we're mostly cloudy.
Maybe wind and solar
and- Oh, you want to talk about offshore wind? That's a controversy between tribes. We don't agree on that. There was some talks about doing some offshore wind in the strait, and we were like,
Interesting.
yeah. And there's some tribes that are really in support. Like we are in support of it as long as it's not damaging our marine, relatives,
Right.
right?
Trade-offs,
Right.
impacts.
And
Yeah,
there's not enough science yet to know what the impacts on marine life is yet
right.
for offshore wind, so we're still waiting on that. Until then, we're like, I could keep going, but so I guess I'd say where are we most directly impacted right now? We are having to move buildings off of our shore and up, and so we're having to get grants from the feds. And actually, we're trying to move our natural resources lab right now, and the lab is highly critical to our operations because that's where we test for biotoxin in our shellfish every week.
Mm.
And we can't be selling or giving our people bad fish, bad shellfish. You want to poison people, then you lose your credibility, your trust, and your economic development and everything. So trying to move things upshore. We are always looking at the depths of our rivers. So we're tracking our salmon populations as well. Trying to figure out more sources of solar energy, especially in Swim, where it's more sunny. Port Angeles, we're going to have to think about something different. 30 minutes apart, and they have completely different microclimates.
Absolutely.
It's so strange. But we're trying to move into more EV vehicles, trying to make EV chargers more accessible, and trying to educate our people and the human condition.
Mhm.
That's a big one. Trying to teach our people where we can be a little more efficient. Can you use a reusable glass instead of paper cups?
It was intentional, by the way. I'm proud of this one. Everyone has reusable.
Oh yeah.
There's no garbage here. There's water that's in cups we're gonna wash afterwards. So there you
Yes.
go. All these little things, right?
Right? And I would say, if you're talking to tribes across Washington State, there's varying degrees of the effect of climate change. If you're talking to Quinault, who are way out on the West Coast,
Right.
they're not moving just one building like we are. They're moving everything offshore and up into the hill. But I would say over time, one resource that I am worried about that is affecting us culturally is if we lose our cedar trees. I don't have my tree of life anymore. The tree of life provides us transportation, that's our canoes. It provides us homes, that's logs for homes. It provides us tool handles, dishware, weavings, our regalia, so hats, it could be work hats. It's cedar mats for bedding and on the floor. Bentwood boxes for holding our people's remains. Bentwood boxes for storing food. It's everything to us.
Oxygen.
Yeah, exactly. It's oxygen. Yeah. And I remember I had an elder. She was telling me a couple of years ago. She said, if we get warmer here, the cedars will disappear. And we're talking about red western cedar in particular. Yellow cedar is more up in Alaska in the colder climates. And I was just and that was the moment where I had climate anxiety for the first time. Because I was I can't imagine a life without cedar. I just can't. There's cedar all over my house. My people gather it every year. We go to Port Townsend, we go to Indian Island Naval Base, and we gather. We go up Woods Road, just right there in Swim. And so that does make people anxious when we are potentially, because of climate change, losing cultural resource at this point. Not just physical resource like salmon. That's a cultural resource too, but cedar in particular can't lose that. And so that's what really kind of jogged me into getting more into the advocacy role, is like lose the potential of losing that cultural resource, the potential, I could say it a different way, of losing that family member. Now I'm being guided by love, you know, and that's the passion that makes me want to keep talking about it. Talking to the feds, talking to the state, talking to my local county. We got to do something.
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Cedar's a grandmother.
It is,
The
yeah.
one who holds the memory. And
Yep.
Creator gave Cedar the job to hold memory.
Mhm.
Teach people. Cedar taught
Yep.
people how to use all this stuff.
Yes.
Cedar's the one who taught. Yeah,
Mm.
Cedar's grandma.
You can tell we're getting emotional talking about
I
it.
know.
Any of the other panelists yourself included want to chime in on this? How your own communities within smaller communities are combating the effects of climate change, how they're affected. I know Philip's thinking a lot, I know, and Jamal is too. And I can ask another question, but I want to give a moment if you'd like to chime in.
I would just say that this isn't a concrete thing so much, but really important thing is talking about it. That the more we talk about it, the more real it becomes for people.
Can you hold on just for a second, because I want to hear your whole thing. Quick show of hands. How many of us talk about climate change on a weekly basis? I'm impressed, because I want you to continue. Please remember, this is the audience. But, you know, I just read something very recently, Eric, about how this is not a comfortable conversation because it feels so impending, and also like it's so big, like what the heck is it anyway, and what can I do? And people don't talk about it. So I could go off, but I shouldn't, because this is your answer, but please continue.
It's good. Those are good. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Our congregation here in Ballard First Lutheran Church, has for 96 years hosted the annual blessing of the North Pacific fishing fleet. And it's a really
It's fun.
powerful kind of
Yes.
experience. And
It's great.
some years ago, because of our church's relationship with the fishing community, as a result, a lot of my ministry was to the fishing community. I invited them to come. I had a professor from the University of Washington come to talk, an oceanography professor talk about the effects of climate on the fishing community. And I called a local person who was one of those people in the fishing community who knew if he got behind it, it would be a success. And he heard me to say, I didn't say this, but this is what he heard, that I was inviting the fishing community to come hear about how bad they've been and how they're causing these problems in the ocean, rather than how they can mitigate against the changing climate. And so what he said to me, there's none of it I can repeat in a religious panel. And then he hung up on me. So I did have some support, but we got about 50 people to come, and that was good. And then over time, he and I became close, and he died of cancer just last year. And I was asked to go and minister to him. He's retired and was living on Bainbridge Island, and I went to visit him and be with him. And I reminded him of that conversation. I just couldn't help myself, and I wasn't going to have many more chances. And he laughed and said, "Oh, you mean that whole thing? I just didn't know about the acidification of the ocean yet." And I said, "Well, if you're not calm."
But he said yet.
Yes, that's right. And he evolved. He changed. And the conversation had to start somewhere. And if it started with his swearing, God bless that it started.
That's right.
Yeah.
He's passionate about it.
Yep.
And we're kind of defending all our positions. And I'm going to be vulnerable just for a second. The whole reason I put together this panel is for my own blind spots, my own passion, anger, despair. People come to me in my own communities in all the walks like, "Chris, you're so positive." I'm like, yeah, publicly I am. I cry about this stuff. I get upset. I have a lot of, I put this panel together. I'm so inspired by all of you just for my own selfish reason of I need hope. And also realizing that, and I can personally change, and I can personally change my behaviors. I mean, just for the audience really quick, I grew up in Nebraska on a dairy farm with beef, and knowing that, beef is great and let's drink. Well, as I've educated myself and I love those foods, I'm still a carnivore, little truth. But I'm eating less meat in my life because beef, from the research I've done and my changing thoughts, 60 times more carbon than eating a rutabaga
Mhm.
or a cucumber. 60 times, guys. The easiest thing we can do is have even one less meatless meal a day or a week. We don't have to be perfect, but these things matter. They matter. And maybe I'm going to segue this into, that's a hopeful thing. We have agency. I have power to choose today. You know what? I'm not going to have a steak for the next month. Or tomorrow I'm not going to have a burger. I will try something else. It's not that hard when and don't let progress, inhibit. It's not about perfection. It's about progress, right? Little things. If we all did that, if everyone in this room, myself included, had one more meatless meal a day, then we could lower our entire carbon footprint by 33% forever, right? That's powerful. We can do that. Does it matter? It absolutely does. Because we all have agency and we all have impact. And I feel like if we were all in one big, giant, beautiful canoe
Right.
that the tribal nations built, we wouldn't be rowing in different directions. We'll realize, what are we doing? We'd row the same direction.
Yep.
And we would go somewhere quick.
Mhm.
And the beautiful thing, and I've read a lot about different experts and articles, and I'm just trying to learn about climate science myself, is that, man, nature-based solutions and stuff, they work.
Mhm.
When we give nature a day of rest,
Mhm.
a day to breathe, it comes right back.
COVID for years.
Yes.
COVID, the earth took a breath.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And it mattered.
Yeah.
It's proof.
We just have to do it every day and commit.
Yep.
And that's the hard part.
Yeah.
But the easy part, maybe the hard part to also realize is that we have agency in that, no. Every time you say, I got an EV now, it's okay, I'm gonna walk today. These little things, they add up to big things.
Yep.
Chris, let me just
Please.
say something here. In the sacred traditions, there's a phrase called little by little, or in stages.
Yes.
Do the work of transforming your ego from a commanding master into a personal assistant. Open up your heart. Do it little by little, and there comes a time it leads to a quantum jump. But again, you go back to little by little. But it makes a huge difference. So I just wanted to say one thing. In our community, we help one another little by little to make those lifestyle changes, to make it more eco-friendly.
Yes.
That's one part of our work. But the bulk of our work is really helping us to become more evolved human beings. If you study Buddhism, for example, my Buddhist friends tell me the second noble truth is right aspiration. So rather than give a sermon, let me just quote Rumi. Rumi says, no matter how much money you accumulate, no matter how many titles you accumulate, the thief will come from the unguarded side. Focus on that which can never be stolen. Love, compassion, service, graciousness, capacity to forgive. That is what will bring us happiness. So what will bring us happiness? What will bring us happiness? There's another very quick point. A very famous Harvard study, 80 years plus, and also a Brigham Young University of I think by 9 years by now, but 80 years plus. What are the factors that contribute to happiness? Yoga, diet change. Can you guess what the number one was? In both those studies.
Friendships.
Yes, having relationships.
Yes.
Not perfect relationships, having reliable relationships.
Mm.
That was the number one factor for happiness in life. So if I spend all my time working, acquiring titles, I'm missing out on life. This very famous Nobel Prize winner, I forget his name, when he won the Nobel Prize, a young girl wrote him a letter saying, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. And what did he write back? I beg you, I implore you, do not be like me. I spend all my time, my energy, my resources in, aspiring for this Nobel Prize. In the process, my wife has divorced me.
Oh.
My children don't speak to me.
Oh.
My health is gone. All I really wanted was to be loved.
Oh.
So that makes a huge difference. That right aspiration.
The loneliness of all of these changes and aspiring to what means what end.
That's
a
right.
lonely
Yes.
end.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, such a good testimony.
Good. one thought, something that what Eric said.
Please.
Because you mentioned that fishermen in this situation, we're starting to feel a bit demonized, right?
Right.
And that's something that our tribe also does, to answer a bit more of this question. We are consistently working with other industries to partner with them and to find their perspective. Because one thing that this creator has always taught us is you're going to need others to be successful in whatever you're going to be doing, because you don't have everything to yourself. You need others and their resources, whatever that is, from the human to the resource, enter here, financial, science, whatever. So we have been trying for the last 50 years since my chairman, he's been the chairman for 50 years. He's been developing these relationships to say, I'm not here to demonize you, but I am here to tell you we got to make change together. Because if I don't make friends with those industries, I need them to participate in this process of advancing climate measures, right? We need them. And so like fishing is a big one. Like I need my non-native sports fishermen to be my allies.
Right.
I need the fishing plants. I need agriculture. I need my local farmers to be part of the solution.
Absolutely.
So that is one thing that we highly value, is bringing those partners together and being like, we all have a responsibility. And I'm not here to demonize you. I'm here to ask you to be part of the solution.
And to your credit, those things are happening.
Yeah.
And to their credit, they're open. to
Right,
it.
exactly. Yeah. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but when you don't leave the table, like don't give up on leaving the table. Just because you're frustrated, okay, take a break, but always come back to the table and knock on the door again. Maybe when the next leader is in that industry setting, like, hey, can we talk? Now they want to build a relationship. Maybe it takes the next leader phasing out, the new one phasing in. That's okay. Keep knocking on the door.
Absolutely.
Can I say that's, we keep circling back to community at some
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is just a personal gripe, but I'm going to own it just for me. If I had $1 for every time I heard somebody in the Pacific Northwest say they're spiritual but not religious,
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't have come here on the bus today. And I get it. I understand it. And those are words we throw around really easily. And I've spent a lot of time on my mind trying to unpack those and what they mean. And I want to raise 3 words that I think are words that, those of us in the religious community use a lot. And one is spiritual, one is religious, and the other is faith. And what are these things? And for me, spirituality is how I experience transcendence. And how I experience that is maybe not the same way that you experience that. Whatever it is that causes me to feel awe, maybe different. We may have some common things, sitting on the rim of a canyon or watching sunset or being in the mountains,
whatever,
whatever that might be. But it's transcendence. And then faith, I think, is where I put my ultimate trust. And then religion is simply, to me, communities that form around that trust, where I put my trust. Those may be different communities that have different names: Islam, Christianity, Judaism, but it's a community word. Religion is. It's not a bad word. And often when we say I am spiritual but not religious, what it means is spirituality good, religion bad.
Yeah.
And I'd really like to confront that stigma. Yes, there's a lot of bad that's happened in the name of religion. I'm
glad you got to that part. Because that's where I'm
I-
thinking about, if I'm an atheist right now, what am I hearing this crazy Christian guy tell me, right?
That's right. But where I learned to love creation and care for creation was my church.
Right.
God so loved the world, but the best translation is the cosmos.
Well, and every faith community, please, please, go ahead, chime in. Please, say your name, let's hear it.
Josh,
Yes.
I do a lot of work with trauma survivors and crisis lines, and one of the things I hear most is I'm spiritual but not religious. From my experience, they always follow that up with a statement of how they want to be in part of a religious group, but how they were told they did not belong in the religious group they've chosen.
Yeah.
Say it again one more time.
That's really important point.
Yeah. every time I've heard that, or most of the times I've heard that, it was somebody who identifies with a religious group, but was told they did not belong in that group that they have chosen.
Exclusivity versus inclusivity.
Oh, yes.
Is that the root of it?
So
Yes, yes.
usually when they say that, they're
Yes.
asking to be invited into whichever group they feel
Right.
you are part of.
And I love spiritual but not religious. Bees collecting nectar from different flowers. It's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's such a good point. That's such a good point. And the next question, it's such a good segue too, because it talks about communities within communities. You know, to say Christian is not a blanket statement, nor is tribal,
Right.
nor is BIPOC. Like,
Yeah.
there are sub-communities that are very disparate within these similar communities that we have to acknowledge as well. It's not a blanket, it's like, oh, you're Christian, we think the same way. Actually, we don't.
Yeah.
And here's all the ways we don't. And then, but can we find commonality despite that?
But
Right.
we all have faith, you see. Could be faith in anything.
Faith is a
Spiritual but
human
not religious.
word.
They have
Yes.
faith. You know, you mentioned atheists. I love this story of an atheist father who tells his son, son, there is no God. And the son is, you know, he's trained to be critical. His father, how do you know? And father says, son, you got to take it on faith.
That's different faith, yeah.
So it's all faith, you see. We all have faith in something.
Absolutely.
I hear what you're saying too, is certain terms that were positive originally have been commandeered and made icky because somebody abused that term, and
Yes.
it's like, can we separate those things, you know, like, just using the term, it doesn't mean I'm part of the icky system.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I had the benefit of growing up in a church where I just don't remember one hateful word about anybody.
Well, after 9/11, there was a problem with Muslims, you know.
Right, yes.
This Muslims are so diverse.
Yeah.
Do you know which is the
Every
largest
population
Muslim
is.
country? Largest population of Muslim? Indonesia.
No,
Yeah. But we don't hear about Indonesia.
right.
And the largest number of Muslims, do you know where they live? In which part of the world? Say it again.
Africa?
No, in South Asia.
Oh.
India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. There's like 2/3 of Muslims all over the world, but you hear mostly of Arab countries. You see. That's a
Right,
small
right.
minority. Small
Yep.
minority.
Yep.
Anyhow, so just tell you how diverse the world is.
But all Muslims think the same, right?
Oh, of course. They're all holy, noble people. Especially me.
Online question that probably is maybe one of your class questions too. of,
Sure.
What's a effective, good way to have discussion with people, maybe people who have more conservative political beliefs, that don't believe climate change is real?
Was that Michelle again?
No, this is Janet.
Oh, Janet, interesting. I'm rolling my eyes because, dang it, it's like, did you guys cheat?
Yes,
Look at my-
yes. I'm sure that was on yours.
So,
So,
go ahead.
Yeah.
You want me to?
I want you to answer it next, please do, but I'm gonna ask it because it's a double, it's a repeat.
Okay.
So I'll tell you what I had on there because it's just so fun, and then please start. So ChatGPT came up with this question. This is kind of nuts. And I was like, dang it, that's really good. How do you navigate political, theological, and cultural tensions around your communities regarding climate change and opposing beliefs?
Let's go.
So again, Janet, you read ChatGPT's mind, and please go ahead.
You know, number one, I understand that our government here, we're not the same in every country all around the world. We have government, we have two different sides, Republicans and Democrats, right? Doesn't mean either party is great.
Right.
So let's be clear. So it's all about what's the best for the bargain. There's always a poison pill with something that's good.
Yeah.
Always. It's like, even if you're saying, oh, we're gonna plant 3 trees for every tree we cut down. However, we're gonna build a refinery on the waterfront right by the Salish tribe.
Mhm.
Right. So I mean, and by the way, we're gonna go to Philadelphia and we're gonna put a coal, fired plant right where we started to
Right.
start building gardens for the community. So one thing is, when you approach that, I don't approach it, politically at all. But I want you to understand what has happened in this environment. And that is, one, understanding that your healthcare no longer now exists due to the way things were voted. Like with the big, beautiful bill. 17 million are going to be without healthcare. Here shortly.
It's a big problem.
So if you're saying that, and in the same token, you also have cut out money for solar, and you've cut out money for EVs and incentives and to manufacture. We're supposed to be manufacturing things. Well, why can't we do it sustainably or renewable? Sustainability is a buzzword. Everybody says it, but at the end of the day, it's about how do we renew things to where they were, meaning with that, renew it in a way that we go back to taking care of our planet, our only one that we have. We need to go back, start over. We have some of the tools, but it's some of the teachings from the generations ago, right? But they were on point. They knew. And I'm going to bring up my father-in-law in this case because specifically, he's in his 80s. And he saw me buy an electric car and he said, well, tell me more. And an 80-year-old man went out and bought a Tesla and solar panels in a heavily, he lives in a community in Florida that does not want him there at all. And he has plenty of land and he's been there for a while. But just having that conversation, no political, no anything, but understood his responsibility on how to lead, which leads the family to say, we have to be better. And that starts at that level to say, I'm here to look forward to generations. Follow me. Follow me. Do as I, as I do, do as I, and everybody says, not as I do. But in this case, it's here's what I'm saying and here's what I'm doing to change that. And you have to be able to change that narrative in the community and say, well, you're not going to take my car away. Not asking to. I'm just telling you, figure it out, because if you don't have health care and you continue to, take this vehicle and start it every day and not use, whether it's public transportation or electrification, your community is going to continue to fill up with smog, as we called it, and everything else. I'm from Philadelphia, so I want you to clearly understand I was in a concrete jungle that you had no options. You could only see there weren't any trees. The trees were in nice areas where we weren't. So, being in a city like that, you talk about natural shade. The only shade that we got is the buildings like we see out this window. And they radiate an extreme amount of heat. And, it holds, the hotter it gets, the more the pollution sits. So every time I do go home, I always tell my better half that, we fly into LA to see, family, or we fly to Philly and see family. There is when you're in the air and you can come down and you can see brown,
that's not good.
That's not a good sign as you come there.
It's not natural.
Washington, it's different. When they come, they're like, man, I can breathe here. You can tell. But if you're only used to something for so long, that's all you know. You have to retrain your brain to think differently. And it takes, the older, and it takes the younger, and it takes the teaching, and getting to people now and as young as you can, because once they get into the habit, it then becomes, you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Right.
So the education, when you asked about communities before, how do you affect it? It's through education. You have to educate at any level, because education is free. I don't have to get paid for it to just get you to understand, if you do not do this, this is the effect.
And continuing to learn.
That is correct.
We have to, it doesn't stop when you're 18 or 20 years out of school. I know continuously learning every day, and how what I thought was right 10 years ago is wrong now, and I accept that, and why, and doing the research and wanting to learn, right?
And I think with those tough conversations, it begins, it's about relationships. It's about establishing relationships apart from the conversation, that trust, that's long-term commitment.
Yep.
It's also about starting with shared values.
Yes.
Leave off the politicized language, the triggering language, and just say, what do we agree on? Do we agree that we care about our babies?
Right.
Do we agree that we care about our elders? Do we agree that you love fishing, I love fishing, right? Finding that common value, and then in a way, and then addressing how climate change is gonna compromise that thing we love.
Yep.
And then providing inspiring solutions to say, but guess what? I just met this awesome guy who's got this amazing idea for a startup that's going to convert gas running cars to electric hybrids, and it's going to be really cool, right?
Right.
Like having that find the shared value, find where we know we connect, and then also pivot toward hope, right?
Mm.
When the day after the election, when I had to teach and I went into my class on climate anxiety to a class which really had students from across the political spectrum. And I knew there were going to be some students in there, a minority at my university, but there would be students who were happy about the outcome of the election. And I knew there were going to be some that were really terrified. And I had to walk in this room when I was still a mess, not knowing how to be with this room full of students, some who were crying and some who were confused. And I thought, okay, but we have to just give up on class and just be here together and talk about this.
Yeah.
But I started by addressing my doubter's corner and to say, folks I know there's some of you in this room that are happy about the outcome of the election today, and that's okay, right? But here's the thing I also know. I know you care about your fellow students. I know you care about the people around you, because that's the kind of place we're at.
Right.
And I know you don't want your friends to be scared, and I know you don't want them to be hurting. And they are scared and they are hurting. And so even if you might not agree with them, we're going to create space for everybody to be safe today, because I know you care about each other. And it just diffused any kind of arguing that might have happened. They immediately were like, you're right, I do care about them and I don't want them to hurt. And we had the coolest conversation. The people who had voted for Trump said, I just don't understand. Can you explain to me why you're so worried about this? And I had children of immigrants say, here's why I'm worried about this. And it was amazing. Like I just love my students.
I want to put you on the spot because, man, wouldn't the world be so much better with more women leaders? You're such a leader.
Well,
Not to take away from the men in the room,
I feel you as a
but leading with empathy, leading with empathy is so vital. And to then, to your credit, I wish I could have been in the room that day with you, and to see like the change in the dynamic, to say, oh, we all have agency, empathy, love, to your point earlier. And can we find that now? It's not about, we're not playing Monopoly, okay? You know what I mean? It is not a zero-sum game where I win so that you lose.
Right. Yeah.
That's not life. And we behave that way quite often. But if we live in abundance, if we live in empathy, to your point, God, what a beautiful world we live in. Like the interfaith amigos, right? Living in abundance, living in common, hope with each other, friendship, right? Humanity.
We always say, let's share, because our ministry is really dealing with people who are adversarial.
Yeah.
So we said, let's share 3 cups of tea.
Mm.
The first cup of tea is listen.
Mm.
Am I really listening? I'm not listening. While you're talking, I'm formulating my answer. Actually.
Yeah.
I do that all the
So,
time.
so Rumi says, what is listening? He says, listening metaphorically. Metaphorically, is like putting your head on the person's chest and sinking into the answer. That's real listening. Okay, first cup is listening. Listen, respect. I don't like what you're saying. You're Islamophobic or for environment, whatever, pro-climate this or anti. But I'm angry at your behavior, not at your being. Your being is Christ nature, Buddha nature, Elohim nature. And if I, in my relationship with you, the action I take with you, if in my heart and mind, I can keep the discernment between behavior and being, this has the power to shift heaven and earth. So listen, respect. The last one is, how can I connect with that person who is adversarial? Well, I love the Christian writer who said, share stories. This universe is made out of stories, not atoms. Just share stories. And once you connect with the other, and I've connected with many people who are adversarial, we might disagree totally, but it becomes impossible to demonize the other person. But it comes from having that relationship, sharing the 3 cups of tea. That matters a lot.
That's beautiful. And who doesn't like tea?
That's right. Look at mocha coffee.
So we are at time, and I think Mark's had a question for a while.
Oh, I know,
I
I
want
am.
to get one from the audience or something, but go ahead.
Oh, sure. Well, it's evolving because it was a lot about how to talk to people about climate. But I've just been in recent conversations. I've been making an effort to reconnect. I came up Protestant, right? I've been making an effort to reconnect with friends from back in the day who were, still like the strong Christian in Orange County and the one in Texas and the one in Arizona, right? And I've been very interested in asking, like, story, right? How to connect, not just connecting, right? Because I can get back into the groove with them. I've known these guys from back in the day, right? And we can just talk and listen, and then okay, we're on the same page. But how do you engage someone about climate change? Someone, and like, what are the motivating things? Like when you were talking about time earlier, one of the things I've been interested in is does the message of the acceleration of climate change, the sheer calculus of it, the fact that yesterday was more valuable than tomorrow, right? Is that something that can instill urgency in them? And then another one is, and I'm talking about people who are like on the less receptive end, not necessarily full on climate denialists, but they're over here, right? Or another one that I've found that I've been road testing a little bit with some success is not talking about global warming, but just local warming, right? Like how's it different? How's it different in Orange County? And he's like, we start by talking about the LA fires, and then we verge into, he's like, oh yeah, no, the Santa Ana's, like the marine layer burns off later or earlier than it used to, right?
So much wind.
And and there are or you can look at the mountains and the glaciers are gone earlier in the year or whatever, right? And so anyway, I'm wondering if there's any like things along those lines that in your experience has been effective ways of talking to doubters or trying to actually, or even people who aren't necessarily doubters, but you're trying to get someone on Team Climate, right? Someone actually engaged and ready to do something about it, right?
It's a good final question, by the way. Are people off the
It
sidelines?
sounds like you've thought it through pretty well.
Yeah.
I know, I really like that idea of talking about locally. When it came up just not that long ago, the idea of, how do you talk to people who are still climate deniers? I have to confess, my naive thought was, and I own this, are there still people?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes.
And I'm sure that's.
There's flat earthers.
I'm sure,
Eric.
yeah, right, I know, but. But I just go back to continuing to talk about it and not worrying about being right, but just having the conversation.
From the tribal perspective, because my dad was actually the one, before he passed away a couple years ago, he was the one who got us really into the climate change movement. And what his strategy was using personal story. He was a commercial fisherman starting in the 80s, and he said he could notice the significant decline in salmon population. And at that point, at least at the tribe, we didn't have the term climate change yet.
Right.
We were just going, oh, this must be over-harvesting, which was true. I think
Right,
over-harvesting was a big portion of that. But we weren't going, oh, and the climate is a part of this too. And then once the science and the terms were starting to come to fruition in Jamestown, we're believing in Western science and indigenous perspective coming together. Like both of our sciences work.
Right.
They are able to weave together. And that's how we can meet like the other partners across the table that come from an American Western perspective. So personal story has been a lot of how we have done a lot of our advocacy, like things that have personally happened to him. I'm watching the decline of the salmon. So therefore my fishery is no longer viable. I had to sell my boat. I had to sell my gear. I had to find a new job, so he's telling people this and they're like, oh, and why is that? Well, over-harvesting and climate change, let's talk about that. So we do a lot of that at the federal table, the state table, and the county table. We bring a lot of just personal, because like it's hard to combat the human, like what we're right. It's like it's hard to combat personal story. Now they might believe different reasons as to how those stories came to be, but like if we continue to say like, hey, it really is climate, like do you love fishing? You're in the Dungeness River too, aren't you? Well, yeah. Did you go out and measure the water? It's only 6 inches deep right now. Like, you can go out there with your own ruler if you want to, but trust the science that I'm trying to bring forward to you. I would say too that we also, I will say tribes are different. We are unique because we're not a racial population, we're a political population. So our chairman says, we're not R, we're not D, we're I for Indian. You know, I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, we have to work with both sides, and like you said, both parties are not perfect, and both parties have their pros and cons when it comes to tribal priorities. But when we're trying to make it real with an administration that does not agree with us right now, and this particular administration does not agree with us, we still try to bring the real stories forward. So here's an example. This administration wants to take the 2-year EPA, so environmental surveys for any developmental projects that the feds wants to do, and take it from a 2-year process to 28 days. And I know. And so
it's nonsense.
I know, and it doesn't work.
No.
And we know why. Like tribes, we're not unaware of the goals of this. He wants to be able to develop. And he wants to be able to develop in our sacred territories. He wants more oil and pipelines. I get it. He wants to develop. That is, and so like I'm trying to also like understand where his perspective is coming from, but it's like, but you need to do it the right way, and maybe not in this abundance. But what we're trying to tell him is like, you can still have a SEPA NEPA process, but you need to make it long enough for us tribes to.
NEPA.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh gosh, NEPA, National Environmental Planning. National Environmental Protection Act. There we go. And then SEPA, I think, is state.
Okay.
The state version. And then TIPA is the tribal version. So NEPA, SEPA, TIPA.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. But we're trying to tell them is like, if you want to follow your constitution, so like that's where we hit people where we know their values are at. It's like Trump wants to follow the Constitution. If you want to follow your Constitution, that means you need to meet with the tribes, consult with the tribes, talk to these other sovereign nations. And what I'm telling you is that you are going to be stepping on the toes of other sovereign nations by doing this. We don't have capacity to meet you where you're at. Follow your Constitution, please. So we try to meet them where they're at, we try to find the common values, try to bring real stories, because that hits a little bit deeper than just trying to say, well, here my science says, because he could say, well, my science says, right? But it's just always coming back to the table. That's one thing she was like, I get frustrated trying to talk to the feds right now because we don't agree on a lot of things, but we're trying to find the places where we do, but I can't stop coming to the table just because I'm frustrated. And I think about like these local conversations, like I have people in my tribe that like we disagree. Like I had a tribal elder day. I was like, hey, I'm off to Seattle. He's like, where are you going? I was like, oh, climate change event. He's like, oh. So, and then he just like changed the subject. And I happen to know his political leaning, and you know, and that's fine. You know, but I get to educate him. It's like, well, guess what? Do you like crab? Because we happen to be doing a crab cook-off today too.
Okay.
So we cook crab and we distribute it to our citizens. I'm like, oh, you like crab? Well, guess what? I happen to need really clean water to keep this crab, and so that happens to be in the realm of climate change. You know, so you can just kind of use these stories to like bring it in. But anyways, all that to say, making it personal. That's what the tribes do.
Yeah.
And I think there's an aspect of making sure that you use like fact. Fact is, this country was built around coastlines, even everywhere. If the ocean levels rise, where is everybody going to go? Miami's due to be underwater very soon. The Keys gone. I mean, these are realities. Just like, you know, tribes are moving up into the hills, you know, and et cetera, because of ocean. That's real. You know, New Orleans, Hurricane Katrina, it's fact. It's how do you help people that when you know something is coming, we can all agree that the hurricanes are getting worse. They are, fact. People that are living along coastal lines, they're losing beach, shorefront, erosion, everything is happening.
The Maldives are going to be gone.
The Maldives, gone. You know, you can sit there and look at it, and you know, the fires are getting worse. But the funny thing is, it was Australia had some of the worst fires ever, but the government didn't want to listen. They were firefighting their own way. They just had to listen to the indigenous folks that have been doing it forever, and it fixed the problem.
Yeah.
The commonality is this: everybody has had different ways, but sometimes you have to listen, really listen to understand. But if you don't, building those relationships, it's like, when I go back to Philly, it's easy. I'm an Eagles fan, blah, 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 blah. We can talk sports all day.
Nebraska, go Huskers,
Yeah,
they do the
there
same
you
thing, right?
So, but at the end of the day, it's, hey, the Delaware River, one story, a dolphin got in the Delaware River and died. They had to try to get the dolphin out. They couldn't. It died because the water was so polluted that the dolphin died. It was a news story, if you ever look it up. But those are common stories that you have to be able to tell, like everybody is saying. It's the reality of things.
Right.
The Delaware River is dredged every year for bodies and weapons and everything. It's a fact, and that's where I live. You have to sit there and wonder, what's being dumped into that river, So at the end of the day, it's telling stories, but I mean, it's starting to affect even the folks in Texas. Texas is supposed to be this big stuff. Look at them. They just had a blanket from the freezing, that they had power outages. Now you have massive flooding, flash flooding. I mean, and that's even across
Really quick, by the way, it's not about just getting hotter, it's about climate being destabilized.
Yeah.
Climate change is not about it's hotter, it's destabilized.
Yep.
So
More
now it's
extremes,
affecting
more cold, more hot, all of it.
It's more than less. It's affecting everybody now. So everybody has a story of, well, yeah, it's getting hot here, or we had a flash flood last night. Like, what? And DC is really bad. That's where my parents are at. And I mean, it's really, really bad. They said we've never had this many thunderstorms, flooding, heat, earlier. Cherry blossoms are coming out early. You can tell Mother Earth is in trouble. And we can sit there and ignore it. But like you said, you have to sit there and really think about it, and give them the facts and relate to their neighborhoods. But
Yeah. If I could quickly add, there's no magic pill to this, right? But I'm finding that it doesn't work until something personally affects them.
yeah, well
That's right.
said. That's it.
Cancer will never happen to me.
Yeah.
Till
Larry Cancer, I'm a survivor, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's a real things.
And finding that thing that personally affects them with climate change takes conversation.
Well, that is I hate to cut the conversation out, but I have to. I'm compelled to because we're quarter after. Guys, we can be here for 3 more hours. But before we end, please, gracious round of applause. It has been such a blessing to host you all. I could talk here for 3 more hours. But thank you all for joining. This has been live streamed. I believe it is also recorded, so I will send out the recording from it. But again, thank you all. What an engaging conversation. And we all have agency. Let's stay in hope. Let's stay in community. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.